Hello, everyone.
Hi, everyone.
Hello to everyone joining the call. What's up? GM.
Hello.
Yes. Hi, Adam. Hi, Marcelo.
Yo, everyone.
What's up, Marcelo? Good to see you. Hi, Rael. Good to meet you as well for the first time.
Hello, Sam. Nice to meet you. Sorry, my video is not on. I'll turn it on when I get to a place that has light.
No worries at all. Just gonna, hey there, Paul. Hey there, Graven. Just gonna wait here. Yeah, the required 5 minutes to let people file in, and then I will start the call.
Hi, everyone.
Does anybody have any cool things going on they want to share while we wait? Can have a little show and tell time if we want. Nobody has anything cool going on?
What was the question?
If anything, yeah, what's going on with everyone? If anyone has anything fun to share or, you know, interesting going on at the moment.
Fun. Yeah, I don't have fun. Not fun anymore.
You're not. Well, that's very sad.
Yeah, it's pretty sad. Fun.
I'll share real quick. I was actually yesterday.
We went to the. I was.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
We were in the beginning of the week. We took the kids like to the only place in Israel with snow, like the only mountain that's high enough to have a little bit of snow. It mostly was ice, but it was. But it definitely was fun, sliding on the snow.
That sounds super fun. Yeah, I know the East Coast of the US got a lot of snow last week. I was going to share that yesterday in London. I was sharing with Hadar earlier, went to a Crypto for Good conference. It's not very typical for London to have a conference like this. Most crypto events here, as you would imagine, generally revolve around traditional finance and like more institutional stuff. So it's pretty nice to see, this one law firm put it on in central London, and interesting presentations from both crypto projects, but also more charitable philanthropic organizations. Guy from the UN was talking about a crypto focus project that they had run recently, which I hadn't heard of before. So yeah, it's always good and refreshing to hear a little bit about how crypto is driving good instead of all the other negative news that generally revolves around it. All right, we're still getting a few people filing in. I just want to make sure most people are here before I start. Super excited to share with you all today kind of what we've been cooking up in the background for the new governance structure for GoodDAO and GoodDollar. Eager to discuss some of the some of the points together and hear your thoughts and feedback. All right, well, it just passed the 5-minute mark, so I'm gonna get started. I'm gonna start the recording here. Just gotta get my AI in the room. I also wanted to mention, I don't know if everyone saw on the group chat in Telegram, but I did extend this call for an extra half an hour if people have time to stick around. I feel like the previous 2 calls, they go by very quickly and we still had some things to discuss. So if you want to drop after the initial hour, feel free. But yeah, we'll hang out for, a full hour and a half. So until 5:30 my time, London time. I believe that's 12:30 Eastern time. Just to make sure that we get a full discussion in. But yeah, thanks everyone for joining the 3rd and final call for this CoGov, the collaborative governance process that we've been undertaking for about 2 months now through the holiday time. And thanks for everyone who have joined for each one of these 3 calls. It's been super exciting to participate with you guys through this. I'm very excited for the conversation today. As I said before, I'm going to kick things off with a hopefully short presentation. I don't want to deliver too much of a lecture, but basically giving you a high-level overview of the currently, proposed work in progress new structure for GoodDollar governance and GoodDAO. And so similarly to the other 2 calls after this presentation, I set up one last FigJam board that we can all head over to and kind of post some initial thoughts, feedback, and kind of have a guided discussion around that. So I hope that sounds good. I have given people the opportunity, if they are new on this call, to introduce themselves if they want. I don't know if anybody, if you want to raise your hand, if you're new and want to introduce yourself, go ahead now. Otherwise, I can continue. Okay, well, in that case, welcome back, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I hope that's coming through for everyone. All right, so like I said, today's the 3rd and final call for CoGov, and we're going to be presenting the new structure that we hope to drive some further discussion around before finalizing for GoodDollar governance. So I wanted to kick it off with a slide around the input that I've kind of been synthesizing from the first 2 calls and the first the couple of months that we've been working together. The first call was all about the purpose of GoodDollar and GoodDAO, mission, vision, values, that sort of thing. And so you see here, some of the major points that I distilled from that conversation was that GoodDAO should be more of a network of impact capital allocators, a community that manages the distribution of money in order to, with this emphasis on growing a collaborative, a positive sum economy, an inclusive economy, and then an alternative monetary system that includes and incorporates more participatory governance. The second call, which focused more on the actual architecture of how we want to get this stuff done, kind of boiled down, or I was distilling those conversations around these points where we're okay with dedicated teams of high context experts making autonomous decisions. Not everybody needs to vote on everything. In other words. And yeah, having more of like a localized UBI for smaller subgroups in the network. Some people brought up that idea, and then really promoting or utilizing governance mechanisms that promote inclusivity and accountability. So the synthesis I have at the bottom here is, structuring GoodDAO in something that I'm going to be calling a network alignment system. And so at a very high level, here are like the overall key changes that I'm summarizing for GoodDAO 2.0, if we want to call it that. So for the governance structure, the way I'm envisioning this in practice is, occurring in 2 layers. So we'll have an execution layer, which will be driven mostly by committees. Another word for these dedicated autonomous teams that we brought up in the last call. And then an accountability layer, which will be driven by 2 houses, which I'm calling them. So the House of Alignment and House of Citizenship, which I'll get into in a minute here. The power distribution. So right now, considering at least in the longer term, deprecating the good token, which is the current governance token for GoodDAO, and assigning governance power more on a 1 person, 1 vote basis, which currently kind of ideating like some sort of badge system that we could use to facilitate that that governance distribution. And so, yeah, between the houses, there will also be some sort of voting power distribution, like weighting system, which we can get into as we get into each one of the houses. And the proposal procedure, which is currently the GIP procedure, yeah, it's going to be more moving forward, like I said, more on these committee pre-screening and approval process, govern more on this optimistic approval process, where there's going to be, faster execution, however, still maintaining accountability through veto power through the houses. So that's just very high level. I know there's probably a lot of questions, but I'm going to get into each one of these components. So the first concept is the House of Alignment, and I'm very excited about this. And yeah, hopefully we can get into this a little bit more in the discussion later. The quote there is something that I keep coming back to, and one of the primary design elements that I'm really focusing on here, which is that collaboration between aligned projects is key to scaling financial inclusion. So what the House of Alignment is at a high level is a group of projects that are aligned with the GoodDollar mission. We're really focusing on building this network alignment system, which I kind of just shared some characteristics, high-level characteristics of here with, projects that share a mission, they have shared public goods. I think very crucially, some sort of shared asset or unit of account, and then also driving positive sum economic activity throughout the network. And so the little graphic here that I created to illustrate exactly how the House of Alignment is going to be structured is, I'm not sure if there's going to be 5 projects, but this is for illustration's sake. I'm thinking anywhere maybe 4 to 6 projects to start. But this grouping of projects here, forming the House of Alignment, each project will stake a certain amount of GoodDollar, and in exchange will receive a percentage of what will be a new community UBI pool. So right now the protocol issues UBI to every verified account that goes in and claims. And there actually is a distribution percentage that goes between currently UBI, which is the individual UBI, which is the majority of the protocol emissions. And then also there's a small percentage that currently goes to the DAO. There will be a third bucket that will be introduced, which will be a community UBI pool, which will then be split between each of the projects that participate in the House of Alignment. Also, in exchange for the staking of the GoodDollar, there will also be governance power and expectations that come with participation in the House of Alignment. So very, very high level look here. I do have a second slide here, which gets into a little bit of the details, but really I want to focus on the high level today without really, getting lost into the minutia. We can definitely discuss that in the days and weeks to come as we're rolling this stuff out. So for the House of Alignment, there's going to be eligibility criteria. I want to say to start, as you see on the second card here, this is really going to be more of like a whitelisting process just with Good Labs and the work with the governance committee to determine which projects can participate and should participate in this. But there will be eligibility criteria. I already said some minimum amount of staked GoodDollar, some minimum amount of participation in governance. And this will also include some sort of reporting, which we can get to. But I do want to say, and then there's going to be an alignment criteria, which I really like the idea of some sort of just digital signature of like a shared document. We have kind of started this North Star document, so we could do some sort of signing there, which I really like. But yeah, that's something we'll roll out as well. In terms of the reporting, so one key aspect of the House of Alignment is that the distributions, the UBI distributions that are going to these projects, it is ultimately like my goal. We don't want to see, oh, sorry, someone's asking to join the call. Let me let them in. I don't want to see the distributions just winding up in these projects' treasuries. We want to see them contributing to impactful projects within their ecosystems, as well as helping to grow this aligned financial system that GoodDollar is trying to create here. We have, we talked about certain like the purpose of GoodDollar, right? And one of the purposes of GoodDAO is really to promote the growth of this ecosystem, the growth of GoodDollar, increasing the distribution, but also driving value back to the reserve so that we can issue more UBI. And so ultimately, the distributions that are part of this House of Alignment will have to go to something that helps support that purpose. The details are still being worked out, and ideally this would be something that we co-design together with the initial pilot projects. But I do think that is a very important element, so that we help contribute to this positive sum economic activity that is part of this network. And so, hopefully in the future, we're definitely going to move towards more of a decentralized selection process where, GoodDAO members will be selecting these projects through periodic votes. I already kind of mentioned this badge system, which the houses will be allocated, which will determine their governance power during certain decisions that need to be made. And the surface area here is basically what they will be governing, the projects themselves. This is going to be the overall percentage of UBI allocations for the protocol. Also the selection of committee members. So if you remember, the House of Alignment is one of the two houses that are part of this accountability layer. So the committees, which we'll get to in a second, they're going to be, autonomously executing, certain proposals. However, still need to remain accountable to the House of Alignment, as well as the second house, which we'll get to on the next slide. And then there's going to be veto power over proposals as well, which is part of this accountability system, which I'll get to at the end. So the House of Citizenship. So this is the second house, which will be targeted towards individual UBI claimers. This is the house I see is driving more inclusive governance from an individual level. Not everybody will be able to participate in the House of Alignment, as it will be targeted towards more of these aligned projects. but that doesn't mean that we want to close off the governance system to individual stakeholders in the GoodDollar network, which are primarily the claimers themselves. So the eligibility criteria, at least to start, is going to be very simple. When you go to claim UBI, you'll be able to claim a badge that is associated with this house, so that we help this transition towards more of a one person, one vote system instead of a token weighted system. And then there's also going to be moving towards some sort of minimum participation in governance as well. To start, all whitelisted accounts, so this will be based on the GoodDollar's identity verification system. All of those whitelisted accounts will be able to participate in governance through this house. In the future, I would ideally like to implement some sort of reputation-weighted governance based on participation and contribution, but that will be, a little bit further down the roadmap. And the governance here is identical to the House of Alignment, so it keeps it very simple. Both houses basically have the same governance surface area or responsibilities. So that's, UBI allocation, the selection of the committee members, as well as the veto power over individual proposals. I think that, so basically the big difference, or like the one design consideration here that I would love to get into during the discussion here, is how to weight the power of each one of these houses. Should they be weighted equal? Should one be weighted more than the other? This is something that I really would value the community's input on, and something that I would like to discuss. So yeah, just keeping that in mind for later. The third and final piece of this puzzle are the committees. So we currently already have the governance committee, which has been going on in parallel to the CoGov process. And this is going to be moving forward more of like the GovOps team. And so facilitating proposals and voting processes, managing the reporting specifically from the House of Alignment projects, as well as communications and admin. And then they're going to be responsible for pre-screening and approving proposals that fall under what's currently called the meta track, which I don't mind that name. We don't necessarily need to change it, but basically it's the governance related proposals, right? So this meta governance track. The committee that I would like to roll out, at least sometime soon, would be the Treasury Committee. And so this would be more of a financial committee. So this would manage like the budgeting and the DAO funding requests, submitting periodic reports as well. And then also their track that they would be focused on would be the financial proposals. So pre-screening and approving financial proposals. Similarly, to start, these committees are going to be more on, just kind of selected by Good Labs itself, but moving forward, we would like to transition into more of a periodic community governance vote that would be, like I said, governed by the houses themselves and that accountability layer. So this, I really don't want to get into the details so much here, but I wanted to outline quickly here the new proposal procedure, which I think, just to give you a high level, this might look like a lot, but actually it's very, I hope, simplistic in that there's currently 3 tracks, and I don't mean to change them, at least to start. We talked about the financial and the governance track, the meta track. And these are going to be governed similarly from the Treasury management perspective. So this is the funding that is flowing from the DAO Treasury, which I just covered is going to be governed by the Treasury Committee. And then the meta governance proposals, which will be governed by the Governance Committee. The importance, so the one thing I did want to mention, and so the protocol procedures, proposals will be governed actually by Good Labs, which I don't really want to take the power away from Good Labs because, they're the more technical team. They have the context. And so in terms of letting them drive execution on the protocol layer, at least to start, that is something that will stay the same. But the one thing to highlight here is this kind of optimistic approval process, which I've mentioned a couple times. And so this is, I really love I feel like DAOs these days don't leverage this capability enough to help promote operational efficiency and quick decision making, which is, I believe, we all know that the troubles that DAOs have with that particular function. And so essentially what optimistic approval means is that each one of these entities, so for Good Labs for the protocol, the future Treasury Committee for Treasury Management or individual project funding from the DAO Treasury, and then the Governance Committee for governance proposals, those proposals will automatically execute, even without a vote. They will only go to a vote if there is someone, it will be governed by, it will need to be a badge holder, right? Has some sort of reason why they believe, and has a proposal then put up why the specific proposal should not move forward. And then there will be a voting process, but only to veto the proposal. And so as you can see, hopefully, most of these proposals do not go through that process, and we're able to execute these proposals at a much more efficient rate. At least that's the goal. And so, yeah, that's kind of the optimistic approval. I'm happy to answer any questions about that in the next session of the call. But that was kind of the reasoning behind that. I'm realizing I didn't explain that the dual kind of financial track here. I talked about the treasury management. This top one, the UBI allocation, I already mentioned. These are the GoodDollar distributions coming from the protocol, not the treasury, right? So this is the House of Alignment distributions, as well as the individual UBI, as well as the percentage that is flowing into the DAO treasury. So this is going to be governed by periodic, what we can call alignment votes if we want. And voted on by the badge holders from both the houses, which I already mentioned. So that's kind of the procedure process. I hope I didn't go too much into the details, but yeah, I'm happy to discuss a little bit more later on the call. This is just to illustrate that this is going to happen in a stage. This transition is going to happen in a staged way, right? So we're currently in this beginning card, the CoGov collaborative governance process, where the committees, the House of Alignment projects, they're all going to be selected by Good Labs, so fairly centralized process. And the control over the protocol, treasury, and meta governance, that's still going to be governed by the current GIB process, the Good token. That nothing has changed there yet. It's where things get interesting is this intermediate stage, which we begin the governance transition. With a DAO funding program, so treasury funding program, as well as launching the community UBI to the selected House of Alignment projects. We're going to have a implementation vote for GoodDAO 2.0, and that will all be governed still, just like it is now, by the GIP process and the Good token. This kind of end card, this will happen in time. It's kind of part of this progressive decentralization, if you want to call it that, but the end state really moving towards where UBI allocation committees are both selected by the GoodDAO, by an established governance process there, and this optimistic governance is really governing the individual proposal processes that are moving through the DAO. The control of the protocol, just to reiterate, Good Labs, the treasury is going to be by the Treasury Committee, the meta governance is going to be by the Governance Committee. So that's kind of the end state which we're moving towards. The last slide here is just the immediate roadmap for about the next quarter, just to give you an idea of the immediate next steps. So end of January here, we're going to be wrapping up CoGov. Like I said, this is the third and final call. Going to be gathering feedback from you all on what I just presented, both here today, but hopefully async as well. And then moving towards the middle of February, which we're going to begin implementing this governance transition program, selecting the members of the House of Alignment, most crucially, and then the end of February, beginning of March, launching the House of Alignment officially. That'll be the beginning of the next phase, that intermediate governance phase. And then that sometime in March, moving towards the end of March will be the House of Citizenship, and then moving towards more decentralization within the system. So that I will stop sharing is my, hopefully it wasn't too long of a presentation today. But yes, very, very excited to get into any and all of those details with all of you now. So what I'll ask, I'm gonna drop a link like we've done previously to a Figma board in the chat. So if you would all hop into there, you'll see this is still the same one as last time. I will also share my screen for context in case anyone maybe has trouble. Also, let me know if anyone has trouble getting in. Hopefully not. So yes, this is the same one as we've been using and kind of just piling on. So you'll see the first is, the first call is there, the second call is there. If you move to the third panel at the bottom, I've set up a little bit of a SWOT analysis for essentially GoodDAO 2.0 as I just presented it. I thought this would be an interesting structure to collect feedback. So if anybody is not familiar with SWOT, it basically stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. I put a little screenshot from Claude there on the brief description of each. Yes, this doesn't have to be so scientific or anything. I'm mostly interested in what you all think of the new proposed structure. But yes, in each quadrant there, that's post sticky notes. What we think the strength. So I kind of put an example. I'm seeing I didn't put in an example for the threat, but yeah, I think we can all deduce exactly what belongs in each quadrant, I hope. And yeah, so just start, feel free, add as many stickies in each one that you want. Essentially the feedback on the presentation. I have this set for 5 minutes. Maybe let's extend it 7 minutes. I don't think that'll be too long since we're gonna be going hopefully an hour and a half today. And yeah, I'll start the timer now and we'll come back after 7 minutes to discuss. Also, yeah, feel free to raise your hand during any of this with any questions that you have. Yeah, happy to answer. Yes, Ziv, I see you raise the hand.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that I understand.
Yes, please.
So let's say I want to pass a vote to pay Hadar all of the reserve money. Then the vote would, the decision would be automatically executed. That's what you're saying, but then it could be vetoed. But if it's automatically executed, in a millisecond, how can it actually be vetoed? So I want to understand.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's actually a good point. I did not add that there needs to be some sort of veto period, right? So, let's say hypothetically here, it will be something, like 7 days, right? That the proposal needs to remain up. And will allow for sufficient time for anybody to put up a veto proposal, right? And then have some sort of vote before any malicious. In this case, it seems like quite a malicious proposal, so that any malicious proposal doesn't pass. If that answers your question, it makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then if we have the opposite. So let's say we have, we have some, some security issue, and we want to hire a cybersecurity expert, and then it gets vetoed. So what do we do with it? We have to have this cybersecurity expert, otherwise, we're having cybersecurity breach. What can we do if a good decision was vetoed?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think that this kind of gets into, you know, the point that governance can be very messy. I don't think any, you know, system is perfectly suited for, you know, to automatically manage all of these contingencies. I would hope that, yes, you know, in the case of like a cybersecurity expert saying we need to fix this, I would hope that the community would be able to assess that correctly and pass that and not veto it. But I do understand that there will be examples where that might not be as clear cut as that, and that will need to be sorted through, I mean, essentially through the governance process. And you know, that's where it will take a little bit more time. If there are contentious proposals, it will certainly take more time. And you know, it's hard to get a, sorry about that, the music was still on. It's hard to get, you know, such a clean, efficient process when there's going to need to be some deliberative process there. At least that's my own personal view of governance. I do understand that deliberation often comes at the cost of decision-making efficiency, which that's what this system is hopefully designed to cut down on. But of course, there will be examples that will require the necessary deliberation and discussion and consensus making, which will just naturally require more time. So maybe not the cleanest answer, but that's, yeah, happy to discuss.
I think it was solved, like, you know, in other instances, and I'm not an expert, but I think in other instances it was solved by having some kind of a staking mechanism where, you know, if you you vote, but you know, if it's again, like you stake some money on the vote, if it's like, if the you know, if it's something that is good to the DAO and the protocol, then most of the people would vote the same way that you do, and you'll earn something. You earn some staking reward. If it's bad to the protocol, then you probably lose. So you have like a bad incentive, like an incentive not to invest against the interest of the what's good to the protocol. So I don't know. There's all kind of solutions out there, but it might be worth investigating.
All right, I appreciate that. I mean, I'm happy to talk more because I do think that like some staking mechanism can be included in here, particularly when we get into the subject, which is one of the things I would like to talk about here, is like potential identity, like identity stealing, which is a threat to the one person, one vote system, and which probably would require some sort of staking mechanism to introduce like some crypto economic security in there as well. So for sure, staking can be an element of here. You know, in the you know, as you said, to like promote aligned voting as well. I mean, personally, I don't see exactly how it would help mitigate in the exact example that we're talking about right now. But yeah, I would love to discuss at length for the rest of the call as well. Yeah, go ahead, Marcelo.
Maybe regarding your first question, Radar, maybe one way to have like better decisions, it's for the decisions to be like a prerequisite for decisions could be the documents of the decision, because like, of course, everyone can vote whatever interests them, but if there is like a prerequisite to demonstrate how that decision would like benefit the good protocol, how that decision will not harm the good protocol, how that decision represents like the interests of the majority, even if it's like just for affects directly only a minority of the protocol. I mean, I think like in the documentation of the decision, we can define what kind of decisions people will submit, decisions, what kind of proposals people will be able to voluntarily support. Because like if you go, like even if it's a proposal that benefits you, but it harms the protocol, And like, if it's just the proposal, just the title, should GoodDollar do this or that? Then it's easy for like someone in bad faith to just like, okay, let's do it because it benefits me. But if in the proposal there is like, oh, this will not harm GoodDollar because I don't know, like, and then comes like a lie or like, oh, something, a very weak arguments, then like the person will, everyone who voted on that decision, that bad decision, will be like able to, will be accountable for that decision. So I think like documenting the decisions with very like, the more the decision can affect the protocol, the more it should be documented. And in the other side, accountability for like, if you support this decision, what it means for your score, like for the community. So I think like these two things, documenting and accountability for people supporting decisions.
Yeah, I agree, and definitely to the documentation. I think that the proposals themselves, like we need to build up pretty strict guidelines for the proposals, right? So people know exactly what's required if you're going to propose something, right? And then if something, and also to drive a little bit more legibility, right? Meaning if something doesn't meet certain requirements, it is a little bit more obvious to the community, right? So if people are voting, for a harmful proposal or something that doesn't include enough information or context, that is apparent, readily apparent, so that we can call it out. Yeah, go ahead, Hadar.
I wanted to address what Ziv said about security issues. So we have to remember that we are not launching some kind of on-chain governance immediately with all of the risks. So this is an experiment that we are initially doing, and initially all of the execution happens through committees, right? So also if someone votes to give me all the money from the reserve, it still has to go through the Guardians Committee that needs to do on-chain execution. If it's about Treasury, then there's the Treasury Committee. So that's the initial process. It's not that it happens automatically if everybody votes, if there's a majority that votes in a certain way.
Oh, okay. Thank you. I didn't, wasn't clear to me. Thanks.
Apologies, I didn't realize. Yeah, thank you, Hadar, for filling in that gap. Go ahead, Marcelo.
Yes, but regarding like that specific aspect of the decision making, we had an episode in the Arbitrum DAO where people from Blockful, it's a research company from Brazil, a security research company, published a study where they showed that they were able to actually like influence decisions in the DAO, like by accessing the different delegates for different methodologies. So I think like even if it's not like an on-chain automatically thing, we still need like some kind of like heavily documentation on the decisions and on the proposals. Like if it's a proposal that affects like only 0.000% of the protocol, then like doesn't need a lot of documentation. But if it's changed something deeply, then I think like my idea is to turn like more expensive in terms of time and dedication for the ones trying to like manipulate the delegates of the houses,
Yeah, no, that definitely makes sense. That's I hope most people can stay for the hour and a half, because we're already running up on an hour. That's why I wanted to extend it a little bit. But let's move into what everybody wrote down here. Feel free to keep adding as we go along. But I don't know if anybody wanted to talk about any positive feedback or any strengths of this proposal that they very much liked. I'm gonna otherwise take a second here to read and maybe bring up a point that I like. Otherwise, please raise your hand and we can discuss. Yes, go ahead, Han.
I was just wondering about the House of Alignment, what kind of projects you have in mind for participating. Do you have examples?
Yes, I was just reading that, Sticky, if that was yours. That's a great question. I think that we definitely have some in mind. I think that a lot of projects are either represented here already from the people who have been participating or are otherwise associated with GoodDollar. But generally speaking, the projects that are aligned with GoodDollar's mission, right, of inclusive finance, equality and open participation, as well as I really love the new localism movement that is happening primarily throughout the Ethereum ecosystem. I think that very much aligns with GoodDollar's, the impact that GoodDollar has already made, right? Like really on a local level, impacting individual lives. And so being able to, and to give you an idea of the flow of funds and how I see it ideally happening is, from the GoodDollar protocol to a project that is involved, let's say, in some sort of local project, and having those GoodDollars flow directly to like the end user, I guess we could call them, or like end individual, and making a direct impact on the local community that project is involved in. I love that idea and really promoting this idea of localism through it. We have to keep in mind, though, that the way that we structure this with the projects that end up being in the House of Alignment, like we want this to be a super collaborative process, right? Where, the projects are collaborating and helping each other for this positive sum activity, right? So what that means is, figuring out some sort of, if it's going to be some sort of like, let's say an incentive program, like matching incentives with GoodDollars to promote like the distribution of GoodDollar, but also the value back to the GoodDollar ecosystem, either through increasing GoodDollar transactions, or money back to the reserve so we can issue more UBI. That all needs to be worked out in the ways that ultimately these projects distribute the UBI that they're getting to individuals. So yeah, I hope that was a little bit of an extra answer at the end, but I hope that answered your question. So I am seeing that somebody really does like the one person, one vote aspect of this. And this is something I did take directly from a lot of people had mentioned this previously during the rest of the CoGov process. So I know that so moving over to the weaknesses, I put this first one, which I kind of already mentioned. And I'm wondering what people's thoughts are on this. I do think that a design consideration here is the fact that people's identities can be farmed. And actually there was a forum post as a response to my announcement of this week's call on the forum, documenting an already identified case. I'm forgetting exactly where it took place, maybe Bangladesh, where apparently someone farmed like hundreds of identities. And I mean, that's not great for UBI distribution, but if we are giving governance power with these identities, that is a potential attack vector. So I'm wondering what people think about this. I did mention the staking mechanism, which can be implemented to introduce some sort of crypto economic security layer for this. I'm wondering if other people have thoughts on this. Hadar, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So yeah, identity farming is something that that happens. Also happens for WorldCoin. People just registering other people and then claiming their UBI. And so we are putting some mechanisms to prevent that. But I do like, I shared also on the forum, I saw this article, or rather academic paper about, it's called Picker, and I didn't go through all of it, but the basic idea is that you trade your tokens for governance power, and not just stake it, but rather you actually exchange it, you burn your tokens or something like that. So I really like that, and I think that this is something that's good also in terms of specifically for the house, for the what's the name of the second house?
The citizenship one.
The citizenship one. So it could be like a low amount. It could be like, you know, like you pay when you go to a party, not a party, like how do you say it in not the right way, I guess. Yeah, like a political party. You have to pay your membership every year. And then you get to vote and choose who participates, who are the candidates, and so on. So I think that this is something that can be good to implement some kind of maybe even a burning mechanism, or just like paying your subscription for the year, your membership fees, or to be a part of the house. And yeah, definitely can also something similar for the House of Alignment, but there the civil attack is less, but also you want them to have a stake in the game.
Yeah, I think that introducing some sort of economic layer there does make sense, whether you're staking or burning tokens. I think that also can be introduced. I see a question here in terms of every badge holder vetoing. I do want to clarify as well that this whole process will be overseen by the governance committee, right? So if there are, let's say, bad faith vetoes, I guess maybe that's what this sticky is getting to, that would be not ignored, but essentially not go up to a vote, right? I think that also introducing some sort of economic security layer for the vetoes could also disincentivize, like this, if we're talking about spamming vetoes, right? That would also be part of the solution there. I do want to say, in terms of similar experiments, I did take inspiration from a couple of other projects out there. So the structure itself, I don't know if people are familiar with the Bread Cooperative. So the structure itself is similar, meaning the House of Alignment structure is similar to the way that the Bread Cooperative operates and distributes their funds to the participating projects. And then the added condition that these projects actually have to go out and then do something with those UBI funds and can't just sit on them in their treasury. That was actually inspired by a Cello grant program that was Cello essentially issuing grants that needed to be used as part of projects' own incentive programs. So once again, the funds needed to be used and not just kind of hoarded in a way, right? And passed on to the end user in the form of incentives. I think the way that the House of Alignment is going to be built, it doesn't just need to be incentives. And ideally, we would come up with more creative ways to use these funds and impact the end user, right? So those were the two major inspirations that I took for this structure. Thank you for that, Marcelo. Is this something that you created by yourself?
Yes, it was like a security analysis and interdependence analysis on USDC, DAI, and Bread, because I was trying to look at like different frameworks, like USDC, very institutional, blah blah, DAI, very independent, cyberpunk, blah blah, and Bread, very politically oriented. So I tried to map the interdependence between them, and like that's by the end, everyone depends on DAI, and DAI depends heavily on US bonds. So everyone is kind of tied to the same thing. but it was very nice to understand like how it works.
Yeah, thank you for that. I will definitely take a read. I'm very interested. I don't know if the person wants to come forward who wrote this center sticky in terms of longtime contributors feeling like they have enough voting power in the new system. This is something that I do think is an important topic to continually address throughout this transition. I do think that if you introduce a new system, there will always be people who have at least some investment in the old system who might feel like they're disproportionately affected. And I really have already tried to be very conscious of that. CoGov itself, this process of collaborative governance, was one means that I was hoping to get broader community input and buy-in on some of these things, but also hear about cases where maybe contributors might feel disproportionately affected. So I don't know if somebody, whoever wrote that, wants to expand upon that, if they themselves are a longtime contributor. Yeah, I'm
It
happy
was
to
me. I wrote that. Yeah, it's just a concern. I'm wondering how I don't have a lot to elaborate on that.
Okay. I mean, yeah, like I said, this is something that I want to continually address through the governance transition period. I want to give ample opportunity for these contributors to come forward. I mean, to be honest, nobody has thus far. I do understand this is the first time we've kind of presented the new structure as is, and I want to be able to, distribute this as wide throughout the community as possible to invite as much feedback on it. So beyond that, I'm not sure, what else at least I can do to ensure that people don't feel too negatively about it. But, I want to continually have this conversation and invite feedback from those people. I see we have something that says that the house structure might be a little bit too Web3 native for people. I don't disagree. I hope that will be cured with good UX, honestly, where it will be super easy to participate if you're in the House of Citizenship, let's say if you're just a standard UBI claimer, where you will be able to go in and easily have your voice heard, whether it's by making a proposal, participating in a veto process. Either way, I think that, the UX is important, right? Because crypto UX tends to be, not so good and difficult for non-Web3 natives. I hope that the house terminology itself isn't so difficult. I have admitted, I think before, that I'm not great at naming things. So as part of this process, I am open to alternative names. I do admit that the house naming, there are other Web3 projects have done that. And so, did take inspiration, at least from a naming perspective. I know Near just came out with their House of Stake. Optimism has had houses in the past, projects like that. So I admit the naming convention is a little Web3. I hope that doesn't turn too many people off. I also do know we're hitting the hour right now. I hope most people can stay because we have 2 more quadrants left, and I hope that there's more discussion that we want to have here, as well as hopefully more questions that I can answer while we're all together. So I guess moving on, were there any other weaknesses? I'd like to spend more time on this area if we can, because this is the most important for me as I'm going about iterating on this before formally, launching the new system, right? So if anybody else wanted to add any negative feedback, let's call it constructive feedback. Thanks, Paul. Please raise your hand, and happy to discuss right now.
So I didn't write it, but I'm wondering who wrote the one person, one vote can limit the available mechanism, decision making, and what type of decisions. Also, the whole voting, the whole thing that we said that it's when does voting? Maybe it's also not clear, like when does voting come into place, and you know, like is there a quorum and stuff like that?
Yeah, so the primary, I think to launch, the primary vote that people will take place or will participate in is the periodic, what I was calling the alignment votes, right? So this is the high level UBI distribution vote. And this is something similar if we're talking about similar experiments. This is very similar to the bread system, right? Where they have periodic votes about the distributions throughout the system. Now, there are a couple considerations here where you want, you don't want projects getting no money, right? And actually at this point, I think each project might just, it is my preference that to start, each project will get the same amount for simplicity's sake, but also to make sure that it's worth participating in and making it valuable to these projects. Maybe moving forward, we can vote on the individual project distributions, which maybe we can start off with as well. I'm happy to hear people's opinions on that. But what I'm thinking is to start is that people will just vote on the high level, like, okay, we're going to go 60% to individual UBI and then 30% to community UBI, to the House of Alignment, and then let's say the remaining 10% to the DAO. Those high level distributions should be subject to this voting. And I think that is like a good way to launch kind of this, you know, periodic governance participation and building up engagement from each one of the houses, right? And then moving forward, it will be individual proposals that the committees are passing, and that there will be some sort of voting periods where, you know, if it is vetoed or if there's a veto proposal, that will be organized into some sort of voting process. Go ahead, Marcelo.
I think like regarding the question about the one person, one vote, I think like in any kind of like collective decisions, we always have trade-offs. Like we need to select one like way of deciding things, and that way will influence the decisions. So maybe one thing that we can do to address this kind of weakness is to have like very clearly what kind of trade-offs the GoodDollar ecosystem it's prone to do. Like, hey, we are deciding this and not this because of this. Like, even if like, oh, for other things that would be better, but we are deciding this way because it's like to the identity of the protocol, to the working culture, blah blah. Like maybe that can be a way to address this specific kind of weakness.
Yeah, I mean, at a very base level, I think that I decided this because it aligns with the values of GoodDollar, which is inclusivity, particularly around financial, you know, not gatekeeping based on financial means. And that is more important than the trade-offs that we get with one person, one vote. I don't think, I agree that if we strictly limit it, like one person, one vote, like with just the badge, like I agree that would limit available mechanisms. However, there is still the GoodDollar token that we could, you know, implement in some additional mechanism that's layered on top of just this plain vanilla one person, one vote. I don't want to limit the design here. That's not the intention. It's to drive more alignment with the ultimate values of the GoodDollar ecosystem, which the Good token, the way that it was implemented, I think in most people's opinions was not accomplishing. And so that I mean, if we're doing like a theory of change type thing, or, you know, like exactly what you're laying out, Marcelo, that is my reasoning at a very, you know, basic level, right? And then we can go into a little bit, more detail as well. But that's kind of my thinking. Yeah, I mean, this is an interesting one too, being afraid to challenge on an optimistic proposal for social reasons. I don't disagree that that is a potential risk. I hadn't necessarily thought of that yet, so I don't necessarily have an answer to that. But that is interesting. I was considering there are, many like privacy preserving protocols these days for voting. Pre-vote is one that I have some familiarity with, which I was also thinking could be an interesting platform to trial for this, because I understand if you move to a one person, one vote, particularly in the GoodDollar system where like these accounts are identity verified, you would probably want as many privacy protections as possible during this governance process. And so that was actually a consideration that I already had. And so running like, the votes on a platform like Pre-Vote, which is anonymous voting, that could help, let's say, mitigate the risk of social pressures, right? Where people will feel a little bit more empowered to reveal their true preferences, right? Through the voting process. So that, I mean, I guess that's one potential solution that I was already thinking of, but that is an interesting question. Yeah, no, I agree, Marcelo, a theory of change. Maybe I will iterate or let's say explain that a little bit more in my final like publishing of this structure. I could go into a little bit more detail on that. That's a good point. Yeah, introducing a theory of change. I like it. Okay, well, unless anybody has anything else on the weaknesses, we can go into the opportunities, which I am excited about as well. We have a little over 20 minutes left. Not as much here, but I don't know if anybody wanted to. I can start with my sticky, which I kind of already mentioned, which I'm very excited at the opportunity. So kind of thinking about opportunities as being this external force that we can help, take advantage of or leverage and help support. The localism movement occurring throughout the Ethereum ecosystem. I think 2025 was a huge year for this. And this is something that I personally would love to see GoodDollar impacting through GoodDollar distributions from the protocol. And I do think that the House of Alignment is an answer for this, right? Getting the right projects in there that can make impact on a local level. I think that is an excellent use of protocol funds and a way to promote like this kind of aligned ecosystem that we want to promote. So that was kind of my opportunity. I don't know if anybody else wanted to mention anything else that was here. Got that. That's interesting. I don't know if, yeah, go ahead, Marcel. I don't know, did you put this bottom right one, or I don't know who put that there?
Yes, it was me, because I talked with I forgot his name, but he was, we were both like speaking at the governance day at Dev Connect, and I knew that UNESCO already like experimented with on-chain capital allocation. I think they did like some Gitcoin rounds, like something like this. So if like with the focus on UBI, GoodDollar, and with the size of the GoodDollar community, I think it becomes like the obvious way to go for like big organizations, multilateral organizations, to experiment with like planetary level impact capital allocation with like on-chain features. Maybe it's like one talk away from happening.
Yeah, no, that's super exciting. What's the guy's name you were speaking with? I'm wondering if I know him.
I will try to find now, and I'll share.
Yeah, if you could share, that would be awesome. That's super exciting. I think that, yeah, like I said, the conference that I went to yesterday, there wasn't anything UBI specific, but in terms of these types of bigger organizations, like I know UNICEF, there was UN yesterday, UNESCO, there are definitely people, at least some, allies, if we want to call them that, crypto allies within each one of these organizations. And I definitely think that it would be worth, getting this on their map. Yeah, happy to connect with that guy and see if we can collaborate in some way. But I think that's a great opportunity. So yeah, thank you for putting that there. I am familiar with the Circles project. I don't know if whoever put that there has some more familiarity. I haven't really heard much about them recently. I do know the Localism Fund, and we know Monty, who's running that. So, and also TrustGraph. I think these are great projects. I don't know. Yeah, Circles V2. I don't know if anybody. I know that's another UBI project, but I haven't heard much about them recently. I don't know if we wanted to expand there, but
yeah, Circles is like you create your own currency and then you trust people, and then the people you trusted, you can they can get liquidity from the token you created. So basically, like I create my own token, Marcelo token. I issue it every day, and then like I start to send this to people like around my circle of trust. And whatever I want to add liquidity for them, I just add liquidity to my own token, and it's spread to everyone. But it's more like a social thing. This is just the economy.
Yeah, so if you recall in DevConnect, in the first governance breakfast, we had a poll there from Circles. So he was there. Yeah, what exactly can we do together with Circles? It's not clear. The main problem, I think, for Circle is that their token doesn't have an underlying price. So maybe some kind of a liquidity thing with them, but I'm not so sure. Maybe they are more connected to some kind of a real economy. I mean, they did do some experiments in Berlin with local merchants and so on. So maybe something around that.
I think we are talking about different circles. I was talking about the Gnosis circles. Sorry.
What's that?
I was talking about the Gnosis circles.
Yeah. The Circles UBI token, but yeah.
Oh, it's the same one? Because there are people doing UBI things in Germany, but they are not related with the Gnosis part.
No. The Circles team, they also did something with local economy in Berlin. They also tried to do something with that. But yeah, we can definitely try and ping Paul again, see what they're up to.
Yeah, no, I remember Paul. Yeah, he was part of Circles. Yeah, I'd be interested to hear what they're up to these days. I really haven't heard much, but okay. And then I guess going to the last quadrant in the last, what do we got, 10, 15 minutes. There's a few more here. We've got identity farming again. Yeah, a lot of people worried about the spamming. I mean, that's always going to be a challenge and something that we're going to need to consider. That is an interesting one. Lack of clarity of the division between bureaucracy and human deliberation. Yeah, I mean, I think that hopefully that will become more clear as this stuff is actually put down on paper, right? So Marcelo, to your point, some of the documentation around these proposal processes that we're looking for, but also spelling out exactly how the approval process is going to work. Ideally, that would help mitigate that division a little bit and make it a little bit more clear. I don't know if someone who wrote that is still here. I know we've lost a couple people at this point. Yeah, I mean, this last one is a real threat, obviously, apathy, burnout. I agree that the purpose and explaining the purpose is most important. I don't know if someone who wrote that wanted to expand. I don't know if it needs any expansion because it is something we're all familiar with, I'm sure, from being involved with governance in a little way even, and something that I think, yeah, needs to be approached with care, right? And yeah, I mean, this one I agree as well. The fund's not used to, increase token usage. I think that I want to be as mission focused as possible, but through the CoGov process, we've also really put a lot of emphasis on the importance of ecosystem sustainability as well. So being able to remain doing good in the way that we've been doing it, and yeah, increasing token usage, driving value back to the GoodDollar ecosystem is absolutely necessary. And being able to distribute the GoodDollar token in a way that does that will ultimately be like, the most important thing. So yeah, completely agree. I don't know if anybody had anything else to add before we start wrapping up here. All right. Well, I mean, no need to sit around here. Yeah, I mean, that was all I had today. I guess just as a brief reiteration here, I'm going to be posting like a retrospective on the CoGov process, which I've greatly enjoyed with everyone. I'm going to be posting it to the forum so we can all kind of have that as documentation of the work that we did together and the time we spent together. I will also be posting a more formal GoodDAO 2.0 document, which will, hopefully get into a little bit more detail on some of these questions that we have. And then, yeah, I mean, I welcome all additional feedback and thoughts, especially async. Feel free to respond to any of this on the forum or in the Telegram group. This is a conversation that I want to be ongoing for the next few months as we're rolling this stuff out, little by little. Yeah, I really want to continue this conversation. So that's kind of the next steps here. If anybody had any last words, otherwise, it's been a pleasure. Yeah, sitting in on these calls with everyone. I look forward to the continued participation in GoodDollar governance as we roll this out. And you have something to say? I don't know if you turned your mic on.
No.
Okay, well, then thank you, everyone, again. And yeah, I look forward to seeing you online. Yeah, appreciate it.
Thank you, Sam.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye,
See you.
everyone.